Hey everyone, and welcome to Desrin Does. I'm Desrin, and today we're doing another patch notes review for Pantheon Rise of the Fallen's inaugural Season 2 patch. This one dropped early morning of March 30th, 2024, and because it's the first patch of the season, it is a monster. So, a few notes before we begin. I will be making another ambient B-roll video for Season 2 as soon as I can, but in the meantime, I did just take a few screenshots real quick today that I'll just kind of scroll through here just so you have something current to look at in the background instead of just that old footage, because the lighting update really does have a big effect on the visuals and I did not want to misrepresent it. So I will take a little bit more time to get a proper B-roll video going, and so this will just have to do for now. But since this was such a big update, just strap in because there's no way I'm going to make this brief. I'm going to be honest with you. So get comfortable and let's get started. So first off, this is build number 0.13.650. They may patch after this. Just keep an eye out for it. But this is kind of the big chonky patch to start the season out. Now, a few things noted right at the top. This patch contains substantial adjustments to in-game lighting. That is not an understatement. They say, in general, nighttime when outdoors should now be more navigable without a light source in most areas. Can confirm. Light sources will still be needed in deep shadows or in underground locations such as caves. Yes, definitely. Although there are some different improvements there with some like kind of ambient like kind of light sources just in the environment, which is really nice. But yeah, you do want a torch to go into any of those dark places. As a result of these changes, lantern belts have been removed from the game and will no longer be available. This is probably a temporary measure, according to Joppa. So don't worry. It's just, we've got to find a baseline with the new lighting changes first. And so torches are going to be our baseline. And then in the future, we'll have more options, I'm sure. Players are advised to buy torches for use in dark areas, though, and I second that. Also, this patch contains a major update to the woodworker crafting profession. Our other crafting professions, they say, will be receiving similar updates in the future, so, you know, we'll catch those sections below when we get there. But a big note here is that you might find that some of the schematics and resources that you previously acquired are either not available anymore or can only be sold. So check on that. A lot of stuff has been kind of shifted around, especially when it comes to like trees and woodworking stuff. But yeah, also huge note, the patch contains a new level 17 to 24 dungeon called Mad Run. Extremely challenging opponents lurk within its depths. Venture there at your peril. Hilariously, at the time of this recording, it looks like they've already cleared the level 45 boss that is in Mad Run. So I guess this is another haha Joppa situation, as we kind of joked about on the Q&A last week. But there you go. It is difficult, though, for at-level people. Just be advised. Now, let's actually go through the known issues here, because some of these are pretty important. Crafted tools and items using a dropped component in their construction are not always properly receiving their stats. This is carrying over from Season 1, unfortunately. It doesn't mean all of the components don't work, but it is quite a few of them. So when you're making those like really powerful combination of dropped item crafts and, you know, player crafted stuff, doesn't always get the extra stats. So still a thing. Hopefully that gets fixed soon. Also, buffs and debuff icons will sometimes show negative timers and remain on the UI after the effect's duration has expired. This is in combination with some other buff problems that we'll get to. Animations and sound effects may sometimes play while skinning animals. It's still there, just kind of a minor thing though, you know. But a big one for me at least, group harvesting, or gathering I should say, is not currently functioning. So this wasn't fixed in time, or brought back in time, I should say, for Season 2, unfortunately. But I really look forward to when this does get back in the game. Now, general updates. Huge section here, as I mean, a lot of these are. Now, a player in the group can now target themselves or the group members by a number or name using /target group member. You can read this if you want, if you're a macro person. Macros they're adding more functionality the last several updates, so it can help if you choose to make these macros in game, and that is the syntax there. Now, after killing a skinnable NPC, if loot is left on the NPC, it's now possible to control right-click that NPC to begin skinning, and on completion, the loot from skinning will be added to whatever loot was left on the corpse. This is a nice little quality of life thing, because we've been, occasionally clicking on corpses, and then looks like you're skinning it, and then you forgot to loot it, and yeah, this is great. Keypad keys are now mappable. Oh my gosh, amazing. Just another set of mappable keys, in addition to the ones they added last season. Also, you can change the font size of the chat windows using the chat font size slider in the general tab of the settings window. Huge thing, especially for me with the eyes. It's such a big help, in addition to some other stuff we'll be getting to. Also, on the macro front, macros now support /utility. So basically you do /utility space 126, and it'll use whatever's on your ability bar. So more macro stuff there. And you can check that syntax on screen. Also, increase the font size a bit on tooltips and added some other tooltips. Man, this is just so great. I really struggled to read some of those, and I'm really glad that they're putting some attention to this, even though it's probably not a huge priority, but I love it. Also, added a few newbie tips to the list of messages shown on the loading screen. Now, some of these are funny, but just keep an eye out for them. Some of them are helpful too. I think Rob or Steve is just having a little too much fun with those. The list of abilities in the codex is now sorted by level. Anyone in game previously noticed the skills or the abilities in your codex were kind of sorted in a really weird way in the past, and I know a lot of people asked for this, so I'm glad they got to it so quickly. All right, now pet abilities are now displayed on the pet's UI element. This is totally in preparation for Summoner. So unfortunately, we don't get Summoner in Season 2, but we are getting some Summoner functionality. And it says these abilities can be set to 2 different states, manual or automatic. And that state is changed by just right-clicking on the ability icon on the bar. So if it's manual, pets won't use the ability unless the player manually activates it. And you can press the corresponding mapped key, which is in the input settings. And then there's automatic, where pets will automatically use those abilities, and they'll use them on cooldown as long as mana permits. This is, like I said, it's just kind of setting up for maybe a little bit more functionality. And so far, it seems to work pretty well. All right, class abilities. It is no longer possible to have multiple versions of the Windstrider effect applied to the same character. Stronger versions will overwrite weaker versions if they are present, and weaker versions will fail to apply, etc. I'm going to stop now because it's not actually entirely fixed. You can still kind of jank around with it and get multiple Windstriders. It's a different process than it was in the past, but just know that still does exist, in addition to some other buff stacking bugs that they're still trying to track down. Hopefully that's something that can get fixed during the season, so when champs get in, they don't have, the crazy 5 instances of each buff running. It gets a little crazy. So, also, new VFX for the Enchanter's Mesmerize line, and they did add a note here that there's a known issue that the pendulum does not animate correctly. It might swing too much or not far enough, but really cool, more VFX. This isn't the only one, but it's a fun note here because we see Mez a lot. Speaking of Enchanter, they got a new ability. It's called Unravel Magic, and it should be sold on Enchanter vendors. I made sure to check on this because I want to know what it did. They did say it is very useful in Mad Run, hint, hint, wink, wink. So I got the description here for you guys. It's a level 14 ability, and it says focus your arcane prowess to dispel a harmful magical effect from your target. So keep an eye out for those in Mad Run, I guess. Now, Cleric slightly reduced the amount of damage absorption for each rank of barrier. Also, using a barrier will now apply a fatigued spirit debuff, making the target unable to be shielded by any barrier spells again for 10 seconds, and reduce the duration of bolster to 30 seconds and increase the cooldown of bolster to 2 minutes, while also reducing the endurance regeneration bonus of Invigorate to 10%. Nerfs. We'll be getting to the rest of it, but basically healers just got nerfs across the board. Obviously, were really powerful, and this was kind of expected. But clerics, yep, no more just like shielding constantly for entire health bars. Sorry. But onto the shaman, so they get their share. Hurry the Past no longer refreshes the duration of HOTS on this affected target. Hurry the Past is already crazy overpowered, so taking this functionality away is honestly not going to make it too much less overpowered. But at least has a little bit more cost now. Also, using interlocking stones will now apply the weakened frame debuff, making the target unable to be shielded by interlocking stones again for 20 seconds. Also, interlocking stones duration reduced to 20 seconds and cooldown increased to 60 seconds, and reduce the endurance drain component of Windstrider to a base of -20% and a max of -40% at mastery level 3. So Windstrider got a pretty big nerf. It's still something that you just always want, though. Like, it's still very effective. But otherwise, yeah, shaman nerfs as well. Everybody gets it. Now onto wizard. Little bit of a cheeky nerf here. Sure Spell now only is effective on targets up to 6 levels above you. This is because wizards have been kind of used to, because they can guarantee a spell hit, it means eventually, if you get enough of them together, you can take down pretty much everything in the game. So that was kind of rightfully nerfed, but we'll see how the wizards feel about that. Now, Rogue got a little bit as well. Reduced Wall Climber endurance pool, increased from 15 down from 25, and the endurance drain reduction while climbing to 10% down from 25%, and also fixed a bug with Sprint to the Shadows, and it now properly checks for Escape Artist instead of Flash Bomb. I have heard that stealth is a little borked right now, so I can't confirm that until I get on my Rogue and do some testing, but just be aware. Now, Warrior, Shield Block and Shield Slam now properly require a shield to be equipped in the offhand slot. Silly little bug where you could two-hand or dual wield and still use this previously. Obvious bug fix. Paladin, the duration of Cloth of Might and Oath of Valor increased to 2 minutes. Also, NPCs pulled by Edict of Celestial Might should now immediately fire their assist check as needed. Little AI kind of issue there. Now, casters, just kind of across the board, I think this is Wizard and Enchanter because they both got Mage Light, right? Well, Mage Light has been moved to level 20, and it now has a mana upkeep cost while active. Now, I haven't seen the new Mage Light, I don't think, so I don't know how powerful it is. It's supposed to be more powerful than it was, but yeah, pretty big cost there now, and I don't know how many are going to choose to use it. Might just have healers running around with torches instead, but we'll see. All right, bug fixes. So I usually skip a lot of this, but a lot of these are huge bug fixes, so I wanted to kind of go over these with you guys anyways. So fixed various line of sight issues in dungeons. Massive. I can't wait to go through the goblin caves, and hopefully it's a lot better. Little issue with wolf fangs, not a big deal. Crafted signets should now properly receive their damage stats from Celestium Dust. Again, this is super needed. And the scavenging schematics for the climbing claws and the grappling hook should now create the appropriate items. I actually thought these were kind of like memes. I didn't think they were actually in, but I am really going to try to make a grappling hook now and see what that looks like, because wow. Okay, group members leaving the group should now get removed properly for members in different zones, and fixed a bug where old groups would somehow get like reformed when entering a zone. Bunch of big like group related kind of annoyances from last season. Super glad that these got attention and fixed, because there was just kind of annoying always having to reform groups and stuff because it was just getting weird. Fix an issue with warrior battle points and paladin reckoning points not being displayed properly. Again, a little quality of life thing. The ability hotbar should now remember where you left it. Again, little UI things like this just to make things a little less annoying. Some tooltip fixes here. Fix an issue with pets where they're still attacking when they had been ordered to back off. I actually never experienced this, but apparently they were still like defending themselves if they got attacked while they were backing off. So that should be fixed. Huge one. Fix an issue with crates and chests that weren't closing after the player first looted them. And this basically bugged out chests for like until a server restart in season 1. So chests, which are little boxes in the world, should be working properly now, which is huge. Group spells such as Echo of the Rainlands now should affect the pets in the group as well. Little tiny thing, but when you're doing some shenanigans with pets and then the group heal is not hitting them, it's kind of like annoying. Issue with players level. When it wasn't updating on the nameplate. Again, it's a little thing which I've already gotten used to, hovering over people's icons in the group window to see their actual level, but it is nice that that is fixed. Now I don't have to do that. Fix another issue of the group UI where it wasn't updating when players left the group. This is the one that I think everybody saw, like all the time. So again, great fixes. All right, fix some kind of drag and drop problems, some bugs with tooltips here were fixed. Fixed a bug where the character model wouldn't be displayed in character select after being in first person in the game and logging out and back in. Silly little thing. Fixed an issue with torches in the offhand. Fixed several issues with NPC pathing where the NPCs would become stuck in terrain, become unattackable, or unable to properly return to their spawn points. This is huge. We encountered this so much. It actually broke like half of a whole camp in AVP, which was really frustrating. So those should be working again. Thank goodness. Cackling skeletons should now be properly affected by spells that target undead opponents. Clerics and paladins rejoice. The dark flame guards in Thrown Fast should now attack creatures. Anyway, for some reason they weren't line of sight or kill on sight, I should say. Now they are. Fixed a bug where equipped items with an endurance penalty would cause characters to enter the exhausted state permanently. This affected a few people. That was really confusing. They were like not sure why they were exhausted, and GMs had to help. It was just kind of a silly little thing. Crafted potions that apply a buff, such as resistance effects, should now properly apply that buff. This is pretty huge. Going into Mad Run, we were planning on making a bunch of poison resist, for example, and so that's good. That's working. Possible fix for players getting put under the bindstone in certain cases. Again, another thing that required GM intervention, and hopefully it's fixed this time. Fix an issue where human female rogues weren't looping their shadow walk animation. I hadn't seen this, but then again, I don't have a female rogue, so hopefully that's fixed. A little fix to tasks that were not stacking items when they're required. Fixed a bug that was causing mastery upgrades to not be saved sometimes. Holy moly, this happens so much, and I'm so glad it's fixed. Fixed the mastery points display in the character sheet to work with large numbers. We're starting to get a lot of mastery points now because we don't always have a place to spend them. Fixed some places where players are getting stuck. Kind of generic, but we'll see how much of those are fixed. Fix an issue with tooltips and screen settings panels, sometimes rendering behind the character creation panel. Another little visual thing. Pathfinding updates. Again, huge for just consistency and going through places like, I'm assuming Mad Run, but also Goblin Caves and even Overland Camps. Better the pathfinding is, the better the game plays, and I'm really, really glad. All right, guys, the biggest fix, I say kind of jokingly, but NPCs will now flee at more appropriate speeds. So no longer will they immediately take off at absolute max speed, making all sorts of chaos. Now it'll be much more reasonable. Also, again, NPC leashing bug fixes, NPC ability use improvements. This was talked about in the Q&A, just with how they, kind of the logic behind which abilities they have in their ability set and how they will use them. So I look forward to seeing that. Torch and player lighting improvements. This is one part of the lighting update, and basically it means the torch has a much wider spread now, but you do have to equip a torch. Also, several nameplate rendering bug fixes. This is in addition to some other nameplate stuff that I will get to later, but this is very, very welcome. Fixed target bug when selecting an NPC or like an undiscovered faction. I think this has to do with when you like click on a mob from afar and you can kind of see what faction they are. I haven't been able to test that out because I've kind of clicked on everything already. But yeah, fixed NPCs seemingly randomly not respawning anymore, or responding, I should say. Again, we had a few of these. It was really frustrating because, you know, there's only so many camps, and if some of the mobs are bugged, you just can't do the camp. So very, very thankful. And lastly, fixed NPC navigation in areas where zones overlap. Okay, that was a ton of bug fixes. So let's get on to tasks. Now, the order of the Night Warden task series, I think there's like 6 or 7 parts to that, has been adjusted. And I think that's just to make it fall more in line with how the content goes. So you're not, you know, suddenly having to jump into some much harder content and then go back down to easy content. The introductory and tutorial tasks for woodworkers have been adjusted to reflect the changes that we'll get into later. Several new crafting and gathering tasks have been added, so I'm going to be looking for those. Speaking of crafting, though, let's start diving into the woodworking changes here. The progression of wood materials has been reworked. Maple is now the entry-level wood, and followed by ash. Now, a larger variety of wood types will become available for use at higher levels. I haven't yet seen what those are. So if you already know, let me know in the comments. Now, logs may now be refined into lumber, which may be further refined into staves. I don't think that's particularly different, except for it's logs instead of branches. And speaking of, branches from previous versions of the game are no longer usable in crafting. Basically, they got rid of branches, so it's just logs now. Polished versions of woods from previous versions of the game are no longer usable as well. They got rid of the whole polish process. Now, most woodworking schematics now require additional materials. Some of these materials may be gathered directly. Others might be created by alchemists, outfitters, or blacksmiths. To allow new woodworkers to be reasonably self-sufficient, though, the new materials that are used in the entry-level schematics may also be purchased from NPC vendors. This is something we'll be probably seeing a little bit more as time goes on, because I know Nefel likes kind of interdependence between professions. So also, the minimum skill requirements for woodworking schematics have been adjusted to better match the intended skill progression. I haven't seen what way, you know, this kind of goes, whether it's like kind of a nerf or a buff, but we'll see. Also, minimum skill information is now listed on the item description for woodworking schematics, as well as other new schematics. And I hope this is just across the board, because it is really annoying where you would buy a schematic just to see that it was a skill level that you were super far from. So hopefully this gets rolled out to everything. Now, big one here. Bulk refining schematics for lumber and staves have been added to the game. There's 2 levels of bulk refining schematics available for woodworkers who satisfy the appropriate requirements. So finally, we're starting to get like kind of bulk refining. Woohoo! All right, to alchemy. This was a surprise. New alchemy tools and combinations have been added to provide support for the other professions. So this is more use for alchemy other than just kind of potion making and flux making. So we'll see how that plays out. Outfitting now also has new outfitter schematics. Now this should be it says to provide support for other crafting professions. I assume that's woodworking. All right, huge update here. Burlap thread, cotton yarn, and linen thread schematics now yield 3 thread and yarn per combine. This is in line with the other professions much more, so you don't have to spend like 60 jute just to make enough for, you know, cloth gear. This is awesome. I know I shouldn't be so excited, but I am. Now, stitch leather has also been renamed to cure leather, just to keep that in mind. Now, blacksmithing, like the other professions here, new blacksmithing schematics have been added to provide support for the other crafting professions. All right, now let's get into gathering. So, wood cutting. The population of gatherable trees and thrown fast has been adjusted to match the updated material progression from woodworking. Also, gatherable trees have been added to playable areas of Avendir's Pass. This actually fills out the world a lot more than I thought it would. just have like trees all over AVP. Awesome. Gatherable trees also no longer yield branches, like I mentioned before, but instead they just yield additional logs, which is very nice. Apple and walnut trees no longer yield logs, which is interesting. And the gathering animation for these tree types will be adjusted in a future update. So instead of chopping, I guess you'll be, picking, which is kind of interesting. Also, Celestium dust may now rarely be found from gathering from any available tree type, so not just high-level trees. Also, additional types of items may now be gained when chopping down trees. And I think a lot of these items are seeming to be like alchemy components and stuff from what I've found. Like I got some like crow feathers and some other stuff. We'll see how or what recipes those are for. But yeah, starting to see other like byproducts from trees. And harvesting. So adjustments have been made to harvesting nodes in Thronefast. Don't know what those adjustments are. The number of active fiber harvesting nodes in AVP has been increased. And I have definitely noticed this. AVP is a valid place to get most resources now, which is fantastic. Also, on that note, for mining, the number of active mining nodes in AVP has been increased. So for skinning though, this is where that update from before comes in. So holding control and right-clicking a skinnable NPC corpse will allow you to begin skinning immediately without first looting the items from a corpse. And this is kind of clever because skinning yields will just be added to the loot window when the action completes. There's a note here that you will have to open the loot window on the corpse before you can start skinning, but very interesting, very interesting. I think that's pretty streamlined way to do it. Now, items. This is actually another pretty big section, so buckle up. The stack size of most gathered resources has been increased to 30. I'm sure everybody is excited about that. Now, interesting thing here, Cobalt weapons now have a minimum level requirement of 99, which is usually what they do when they're just kind of like taking stuff off the board real quick that they don't want to be in the player economy. And they should no longer drop from Gadai Quick Blades or Gadai Monks. So anyone that's currently using Cobalt, probably going to be disappointed with that, but there are other options. Several weapon and armor crates in Thronefast have been adjusted to yield more level appropriate items. I don't know if that is buff or nerf, we'll see. Also, rough spun cloth armor, functionary cloth armor, and spectral cloth armor are now usable by all classes. It is cloth, so yeah. Humanoid NPCs will now drop usable armor pieces slightly more often. We get a lot of weapons right now, not as much armor, so hopefully that is a help for people that rely on drops. The AC values of several dropped armor items has been increased. I have yet to see how this plays out, but hopefully that means you can get a little bit better armor from drops now. Also, shields. This is kind of a big deal for anybody out there that uses shields. They now have a new stat called block value, and that influences the amount of damage the shield will mitigate on a successful block. So there's still block rating, which influences the chance of a successful block. But now there's two stats to kind of help differentiate shields and help, you're going to have to figure out what you prefer. So keep an eye out on that. Kind of mentioned earlier, but lantern belts are no longer able to be purchased or used. And again, this is temporary as they tune the new lighting mechanics. Also, torches may now be purchased from many vendors because you will want to have a torch. Also, new characters will start with a torch in their inventory instead of a lantern belt, obviously. So here's where we kind of get to the things that I've found out today, either myself or from other people that aren't in the notes, that I wanted to highlight for you guys just as kind of extra bits. And there is a lot of stuff in the game that is not in the notes, just to be clear, especially on the visual side. It's just most of these notes come from like 2 or 3 people on the team, and there are more people on the team making stuff, and it just doesn't end up here. So got to keep your eyes open. But I will tell you, one of the biggest changes for me is the nameplate opacity changes. So nameplate opacity is now based on visibility. So basically in like broad daylight, nameplates, including players, are pretty much completely opaque now. So they're very easy to read, which is something that has been a struggle for me for a long time. But if you're in a dark or kind of obscured area, nameplates get more transparent as they get more obscured. I actually thought they were just going to turn on or off based on if they're in the light or not. And this is actually a kind of elegant way to do it. It's not perfect. There are some bugs with it for sure, but definitely check that out because it's very interesting. And honestly, overall, for me at least, I think it increases the legibility of nameplates, which is I'm very thankful for. Little thing for people that were farming the Wisp Metal Loop at the Undead Manor, the Spirit Manor, as we usually call it. It was nerfed. It used to have 8% hidden crit, and now it seems like it's more like 3% hidden crit. Just be aware of that. It's still really good, but, not just as ridiculous as it was. Also, on the note of visuals, kind of just a bunch of stuff. So there's been a bunch of little VFX added or updated throughout the world. Like the campfire, for example, is definitely different. There's been a bunch of new combat animations added. You'll notice that foliage is just a lot more dense and full now, which is a huge improvement. Obviously, there's a bunch of post-processing and lighting changes that just it makes the game look quite a bit better, to be honest. But yeah, that is it. Season 2 is here, and it seems to have launched without any major issues so far. And people are kind of just playing, they're testing, they're bug hunting, they're giving their feedback to push for as much improvement as we can in the first few weeks of the season. So hopefully we can expect kind of a mid-season follow-up patch to fix a few, additional bumps and make the experience really, really good for champions and supporters when they get back in 4 or 5 weeks from now. And of course, you'll be sure to find another patch notes review when that happens. And again, keep an eye out for another ambient V-roll video coming soon. It's going to be crazy in comparison to the previous ones, just because the visuals are so much improved. And maybe I'll do a season 1 versus season 2 comparison video. We'll see. But yeah, guys, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you think I deserve it and you want to see more videos like this and the ambient videos and maybe whatever else I can come up with. So like the video and comment below, tell me what you think of these patch notes, or if you have any additional things that weren't in the patch notes, list them below and maybe I'll put them in a pinned comment or something. And with that, thank you so much for watching and or listening. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you all next time.